Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you guys my top 5 reads of August. I am so happy that I have started doing these videos every month now because it is just the perfect opportunity for me to gush about my top 5 favorite books of any given month. So without further ado, let's just kind of jump right on into it. The first book that I want to rave about is Flash Fire by TJ Klune. This is book 2 in his The Extraordinaries series. I'm not going to go too in depth about any of the plots of these books. I want to focus more about why I loved them so much, okay? So, but this is a YA series that's all about gay superheroes. We're centering around Nick, our main character. He has ADHD. He writes gay fan fiction, and yeah, there's superheroes involved. That's all you need to know, basically. But so yeah, this is the sequel to the first book, which is called The Extraordinaries, and there is something about TJ Klune's writing and his sense of humor that to me just reads as very unique and very comforting at the same time. Anytime I've opened up one of his books, I somehow immediately like feel at home and just really happy. And so that's one of the reasons why I loved this book so much. I also feel like this book really addressed some issues that were brought up in the first book in a really good way. Because in the first book it kind of felt like the police were being glorified because Nick's father is a cop and like he really idolizes him, and I could see where that would be problematic for some readers, but I do think in this sequel, TJ Klune really took the time to address that in a really positive and honest way. Also, the new characters that we got to meet, because there's several new superheroes that we get to meet. Anytime I think about this book, my mind immediately goes to this new superhero that they meet who is a drag queen. She conducts electricity, and so her superhero name is Miss Conduct. Need I say more? Like, isn't that absolutely incredible, right? Definitely don't be surprised if this ends up in my top 10 favorite books of the year. It's just fantastic, and I love the way that TJ Klune writes the superheroes and this world in general. Like, it's very campy, kind of over the top and ridiculous at times, but like, we're talking about superheroes here, like that's over the top, you know? Like, I don't know, it's just like really cool, really funny. There's also a great romance going on in this second book in particular. Like, it's so good. Also, the fan fiction that Nick writes literally makes me laugh out loud every time. Next up, we have Any Duchess Will Do by Tessa Dare. I mean, of course this was going to be one of my top 5 reads for August. So this is the final full novel of the Spindle Cove series. I do think this is my favorite book of the series, which is really difficult for me to say though, because A Week to Be Wicked is also a fantastic book, and I adore Colin and Minerva so much, but this one, man, something about this one like just put this one over the top for me in terms of how I view this whole series. But basically, it's a very My Fair Lady / Pygmalion inspired storyline. We have Pauline, she works as a barmaid in Spindle Cove, and Griff, who's a duke, who comes into town with his mother because his mother is desperately trying to marry him off. And so at this point, she just wants to take him to Spindle Cove, which is a village that's known to be filled with spinsters. So kind of known to be filled with women that are desperate to get married. And so, yeah, they show up to the tavern, and to mess with his mother, he picks out Pauline as his future bride. Because he judges her based on her looks. You know, she's a barmaid. She's definitely like the opposite of a future duchess. Pauline's character was really entertaining just because like she's so sassy and quick-witted, and the dynamic between her and Griff was really fun, our hero, but also her and Griff's mother, the Dowager Duchess. That was a really fun dynamic as well, because I feel like in romance novels you don't see a ton of like really positive relationships between like the heroine and their mother-in-law or their future mother-in-law. Like, that's something that read is very unique to me. I loved Griff too because I loved his character development. He's kind of like the rake with a tragic past type of hero, and yeah, it was just great. And of course, as usual with all of the books in this series, the Spindle Cove environment is amazing because all of the people that live in Spindle Cove are absolutely hilarious and like really interesting and unique characters. These are people from all walks of life. So it's really, really fun to read about. One last thing, of course with Tessa there's gonna be the perfect amount of steamy scenes, but there's also a bit of role-playing going on in this book, which I have never seen in any of her other books, and I was so here for it. Okay, next I have to talk about Hefty by Jessica Cain. This is my favorite novella by Jessica Cain. I can say that with no problem, even though I've given quite a few of her novellas 5 stars. This one is on another level. I think that Jessica Cain writes new adult / high school romances actually really well, which is something that you wouldn't really expect from her because most of her novellas like have like a huge age gap and maybe like a lot of daddy kink and like things like that. So this kind of novella in comparison is like very normal and very different for her, I guess, but she just has a knack for it. So I need her to write more of these like new adult romances, but this is a part of like her big boy romance series, I guess you could say, where we are centered around heroes that are larger men, or hefty, however you want to refer to them. Yeah, this centers around our two main characters, Jill, who is your very typical kind of teenager. She's a thin blonde teenager, and then Zach, who is much larger than her. He is on the football team, but he, I believe, is like an offensive lineman. Like, he's definitely not the quarterback, definitely not your typical kind of hero in a high school romance. And so they both have been pining for each other like their whole lives, which is like crack to me. Also, they both feel unworthy of each other for different reasons, which again is like crack to me. And the fact that Jessica Cain can make me care so much for two people in like about 60 pages, that's absolutely insane to me. I mean, I was already fully invested in these characters within the first couple of pages, if I'm being honest. Like, she just wrote these characters spectacularly, in my opinion. I loved everything about this. I teared up. I think I cried several times while reading this. And like I said, it's only 60 pages. Like, what? Like, yeah, if there's any novella by Jessica Cain that I would recommend to you to check out, it would be this one for sure. I promise there's nothing like, there's no weird kinks in this or anything like that if you're worried about that, because most of her novellas do have that. For my next book, I'm just gonna mention a whole like trilogy. This is the Filthy Rich American series by Nikki Sloan. The first book is The Initiation. So this series is kind of broken up into like a trilogy, and then books 4 and 5 are about like different characters. So I'm just talking about the first 3 books of this series, but this is like a soap opera in book form, but it's so much more complex than that. But the basic premise is that we have Marist, who has to marry this guy Royce, basically because McAllister, who is Royce's father, he is going to get Marist's family out of a really bad financial situation if she agrees to marry his son Royce. So that's how this whole story starts. Things get crazy because in order for Royce to get on the board for the bank that he works for and that McAllister is on the board for, he has to be married, and he has to put him and his wife through this absolutely insane initiation. This series is just so cool because of the way that like Greek mythology is incorporated into it, and also how the game of chess is incorporated, especially I want to say book 2 is when chess really plays a big role in this. And it's just so fascinating and really cool. Like, there's comparisons made between some of the characters in the book and Greek gods and goddesses. And then McAllister, who is Royce's father, I guess you would call him the antagonist of this series, and he starts playing games of chess with Marist throughout, especially the second book, The Obsession. And that's really fascinating to read about. Like, he is just such an intriguing character. I don't think I've read about a villain quite like McAllister before, and I'm really excited because the 4th book, The Redemption, is actually going to be McAllister's story, so I'm really excited to see McAllister become the main character. Definitely more of like a dark romance because there's darker themes going on, so definitely check the trigger warnings or the content warnings for yourself. But like, yeah, I cannot wait to read more from Nikki Sloan because I am just absolutely obsessed with her writing style. It reminds me a lot of Katie Robert. Like, I could definitely see Katie Robert writing a series like this. So yeah, definitely recommend. And last but certainly not least, we have If I'm Being Honest by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Baroka. What's really cool about this author duo is that, first of all, I think they're a married couple, which is cool, but also all of their books are based off of Shakespeare works. So their debut, which was, I think it was like Always Never Yours, that one was based off of Romeo and Juliet, and this one is based off of The Taming of the Shrew, which I love any retelling of The Taming of the Shrew. I think it's the one Shakespeare play that I probably relate to the most. I think Catherine is such a cool and intriguing character. And so I was immediately sucked in by that premise. And so we're dealing with Cameron. She's a high school student. I think I mentioned this is YA. But she is not the nicest person. And so this guy that she has a crush on sees her being kind of cruel to somebody, and so he's not into her anymore, and so she decides to tame herself, very much like Catherine from The Taming of the Shrew. And so she starts by apologizing to people that she's wronged in her life, and that starts with this guy Brendan, who, like, a few years before the book starts, she like single-handedly ruined any reputation that he had, because she gave him this really horrible nickname that very quickly caught on. This very quickly turned into a romance between Brendan and Cameron, as opposed to the guy that she was initially crushing on. And man, I was just so sucked into this book. Like, it was so fun and so well paced. I also really adored Cameron's character development and character arc. I thought that was really well done, and the sort of like enemies to friends to lovers relationship that Brendan and Cameron go through, you know, being that she bullied him in their past, and so obviously he's not a fan of her at first. Yeah, like, this was just so great. Also, like, one like random thing is that I had an idea of what the grand gesture was going to be, because I knew that Cameron was going to be the one to mess up her and Brendan's relationship, and I had this really fun idea of what she should do to get him back. And so when that actually ended up happening in the book, I like internally screamed. I was so excited. So yeah, I can't recommend this enough if you're looking for just a really fun YA contemporary rom-com. It also has a lot of depth to it as well, because Cameron's going through a lot. It's absolutely fantastic, and I cannot wait to check out more from this author duo. Alright guys, that's going to be it for my top 5 reads of August. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to tell me about some of your favorite reads of August. I always love having conversations with you guys in the comments down below. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you in advance if you do. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!